This is a weird question. There aren't a lot of SAT questions that I've seen that follow this specific format. And you might have noticed that I consider this a combine sentences question. That's what I labeled it in my books. And, well, we're not combining sentences. There's only one sentence here. But the reason I did that is when I look at this, I do still do the predict the question strategy. And I'm trying to think, what might they be testing here? And the fact that there's an actual question tells me that this isn't really about grammar or style, or at least not primarily about grammar or style. This is about the ideas and making sure the ideas flow neatly. And we see that a lot with those combined sentences questions, where people think it's about grammar, but actually it's about connecting the ideas in a reasonable way. And sometimes the best way to connect the ideas is to follow the SAT's preferred style, which is to keep it short. And so following that advice, it certainly seems that B is better than C and D. It's hard to tell if B is shorter than A, but it's shorter than C and D for sure. But if we look at these choices, we can see why short is better here and what's actually going on. So let's look at C and D first, the longest choices. Not surprisingly, if people do not have to pay a fare, more of those people use public transportation. Well, why do we need to say people twice? That's kind of redundant. We're kind of already there. We don't need to repeat ourselves. Let's phrase this in a way that gets the point out faster. D, using public transportation is done by more people when they do not have to pay a fare. Again, the ideas don't flow here, right? Like, using public transportation is done. It's hard for me to pinpoint exactly what's wrong about that. It's not really grammar per se, but it's kind of wordy and it's taking too long to get those ideas out. A is a little bit better. Not surprisingly, public transportation is used by more people when people do not have to pay a fare. It's a little shorter, but it still has that double people there. I'd rather avoid that if I can. And choice B fixes everything. Not surprisingly, more people use public transportation if they do not have to pay a fare. Right? We used they to represent more people, but that's okay. That's good writing. And so this is just a weird question because it doesn't neatly fall into any category. I do not think grammar matters, but style kind of does. But because this is very similar to the way that they ask combined sentences questions, I'd be doing this in my head the way that I do the combined sentences questions. Thinking about, are the clauses in the right order? And if they are we conveying the idea in the most simple way possible? It's not really about whether a comma is in the right place. Hopefully that helped. Hopefully we don't see too many odd questions like this, but you know, the SAT can do whatever it wants. Sometimes they break their own rules, but if we know the rules well, then we can adjust to when they break them, and this one doesn't seem all that different if we've seen lots of other combined sentences questions.